Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to talk about some demolition tools, and we'd like to thank Taylor Stafford for giving us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate it, and Taylor wants longer episodes.
No.
Blacksmiths were among the first settlers in the early U.S. colonies. The high cost of shipping iron tools to the colonies made blacksmiths essential for repairing and making tools. One blacksmith in the late 1600s wrote that he earned around 40 cents a day, but much of his work was in exchange for food and other supplies. Blacksmiths were making hammers, nails, axes, hoes, and crowbars for the settlers. I read an article from Oxford University. They said crows are one of the smartest birds. They put a piece of pig heart in a plastic tube just out of reach of a crow, and then they put a wire next to the tube. And the crow figured out how to bend that wire and use it to pull out the meat so he could snack on it. Crazy, huh?
Yes, what does that have to do with anything?
I was reading about crowbars, and then crow got stuck in my mind.
How about bars? You're going to hear about saloons now?
Harvard University Joint Center for Housing Studies says around 40% of U.S. homes are at least 50 years old, and at this age, some popular remodeling projects are replacing carpet, flooring, and paneling. The National Association of Home Builders says some top projects for homeowners are removing tile from floors and walls and replacing kitchen cabinets. One of the first projects I did in this condo that my son and I are remodeling is to take up all the old carpet. And most carpet is held down with tack strip, which is thin strips of wood with a lot of sharp tacks that stick up out of the wood and that catches on to the backing of the carpet to hold it in place.
Right.
The tack strip is held down with nails, screws, or glue, and nailed down tack strips pretty common, and it's all along the edge of the carpet. When you're removing carpet, wear an N95 disposable mask because there can be a lot of dust that gets kicked up into the air.
Well, it's not just dust. I mean, there's allergens and dust mites and
bacteria.
Nastiness.
It builds up over the years.
When my grandparents replaced their carpet,
okay.
My grandma always used this carpet powder that she'd sprinkle on the carpet first before she vacuumed. Uh-huh. And so she always thought it made everything smell better, but she thought it always got up with the vacuum.
Sure.
But when they took out the carpet, I mean, it was like a pile of this powder all over the place, and my grandfather was mad. So she wasn't allowed to use that on the new carpet.
That's funny. The Minnesota Department of Health also recommends getting inexpensive plastic drop cloths and covering furniture, bookshelves, and other items that can't be moved from the area. They suggest turning off the central air or heating while you're working to prevent dust and debris from getting into the ductwork and then spreading through the house.
Okay.
To pull up old carpet, you can grab a corner with a pair of pliers and pull it off the tack strip, and then grab it by hand and pull it back. I like using a hooked carpet knife to cut up the carpet in strips as I remove it, and I find it's easier than a regular utility knife. When you're shopping for one of these knives, it can be called a hooked fixed blade utility knife or a hook knife or a flooring and roofing knife. And what I like about this is you only need moderate downward pressure so it grabs onto the carpet, and then you can pull back to cut through the carpet, so it's pretty easy. And this is also a good tool to cut up linoleum flooring. And when you're cutting up carpet to set out for the garbage collection, find out from your town or your waste collection company what size they want the sections in. In the town that we're working in, they want the carpet rolled up and bound in 4-foot long, 2-foot wide sections, and the sections have to be under 60 pounds each.
Okay.
Some top-rated hook knives come from Stanley, Stanley, and it's their Fat Max hook knife. Red Devil has one that's called a flooring knife. Hyde, Hyde, has a flooring and roofing knife. And Irwin, they call theirs a linoleum knife, and Irwin is IRWIN. So you can see how each company calls it something different, and they all look the same.
That's not confusing.
If you're removing the tack strip, one of the best tools is a flat pry bar. And the most common bar is 12 to 15 inches long. One side has a thin, beveled edge to slide under the tack strip, and the bar is angled. So as you push down on the bar, it pries up the wood. Mm-hmm. The other end has a 90-degree bend, so you can get better leverage. And it will usually have 2 or 3 slots to pull nails.
Okay.
Once you've removed the tack strip, you can go back and pull out any nails that were left behind with your flat bar. And on the project I'm working on, there are a lot of nails left behind because it's a concrete floor. So I used the 90-degree side to pull them out, but some of the nails in closets that were in a corner or just hard to get to, I used a nail puller.
Is that different?
Yeah, a nail puller is going to be much smaller, and it's going to have a smaller head that's actually designed to be hit with a hammer, so you can drive this under the surface of wood to grab a nail. The handle is usually going to be round or hex-shaped. One side is generally straight, and one side has a 90-degree angle. With this tool, it's much easier to get into hard-to-reach areas.
Okay.
A flat pull and pry bar was the first tool I ever bought for remodeling homes. Mm-hmm. I saw it on the original This Old House with Bob Vila and Norm Abram, and I went through quite a few of these bars when I was first investing in real estate. I'd break off the notches that pulled nails, or I'd crack the end because we used it for pounding and prying everything. And I wasn't buying very expensive tools when I first started because I didn't have much money. So I would look for a lifetime warranty as a guide to a quality tool when you're looking at pull and pry bars. Some top-rated flat pry bars come from Vaughan. It's VAUGHAN. DeWalt, DE, capital WALT. Crescent, CRESCENT. Tecton, TEKTON. Stanley, and Ox Tools. It's capital O, capital X, TOOLS. Some top-rated nail pullers come from Estwing, ESTWING, Crescent, Vaughan, and Milwaukee.
You're not going to spell Milwaukee?
MILWAUKEE. If you have an older home with vinyl sheet or one-piece linoleum flooring, there could be asbestos in the backing. It's usually in homes built before 1980. You should get an asbestos test kit to test the flooring, and if it has asbestos in it, you should leave it in place and then just put flooring over it or have a professional remove it.
Okay.
If you're removing sheet vinyl and linoleum, there's usually going to be quarter round or trim over the edges, and you're going to need to remove that first. You'll probably also have transition strips between rooms or flooring, like a metal bar. A small molding bar is the best for quarter round or to pull baseboard away from the drywall to minimize damage to the trim or the wall, and then you can use a flat bar to pull away your molding. They're usually called molding or trim bars. They have a very thin blade. Wider on one side is better. One end is usually straight, and you can also use that as a scraper. It's handy. The other end is going to have a 90-degree bend on it for better leverage. Some top-rated small molding and trim bars come from Dasco Pro. It's DASCO, capital PRO. Stiletto, STILETTO, Estwing, and Stanley. Sheet vinyl or linoleum is usually tacked down all along the edge, or it's glued down all along the edge. So you can use a utility knife or a hooked linoleum knife to cut the floor into strips. You can start in the center of the floor and work towards the edge. You can make 2 cuts around a foot apart and slowly roll it up. And when you get to an adhesive, you can use a scraper or a flat pry bar to scrape under the flooring as you roll it up. Mm-hmm. Once you've removed the flooring, you can use a long handle scraper to remove any adhesive that didn't come up, or you can use a heat gun and a small scraper. If there's adhesive all over the subfloor or underlayment, it's going to be a lot more scraping.
And a lot more fun.
Bully Tools, it's BULLY, capital TOOLS. Red Devil, R-E-D, capital D-E-V-I-L, and Warner, W-A-R-N-E-R, all make long handle floor scrapers with heavy steel blades. And I found these to be easier to work with than the long handle scrapers with the very thin replaceable blades. They're almost like a razor blade. Because the thin blades dig into wood subfloors or underlayment too easily. The thicker non-replaceable blade can be sharpened and angled for whatever your project is, and it just, for me at least, it's just easier to control.
Okay.
For removing floor tile like ceramic tile, you can use a long handle floor scraper to get under the edge of the tile and pry it up. And I've also used a flat pry bar and a hammer to pry up a lot of different floor tiles. There's also a reciprocating saw blade that you can get. It's a scraper blade made by Spyder. It's S-P-Y-D-E-R. It comes 2 inches, 4 inches, or 6 inches wide, and this can be sharpened. This is also good for getting up adhesive on subfloors or underlayments.
Cool.
If your tile is over plywood, you can hit the tiles with a 3 or 4 pound mini sledgehammer.
That sounds fun.
Which it is. And these are also called club hammers or drilling hammers. It's a one-handed sledgehammer. The hammer is going to flex the tile and the plywood, helping to break the bond with thin set and the grout. It's usually easier to remove floor tile from plywood than a concrete floor. If you do have tile over a concrete floor, you can still hit it with a sledgehammer to crack it, and then work under the edge with a flat pry bar or a floor chisel. A floor chisel is going to have a wide, hardened metal blade and a shaft, and this is designed to be hit with a drilling hammer. Floor chisels with a plastic hand guard help protect your hand if you accidentally miss the shaft, so you don't hit your hand with a sledgehammer.
It's probably a good thing.
Some top-rated floor chisels come from Mayhew. It's M-A-Y-H-E-W, Dasco, and Ox Tools. Some top-rated drilling hammers, Estwing, DeWalt, Tecton, and Ox Tools. Wear safety goggles, ear protection, gloves, and an N95 mask when you're breaking up tile and chipping off the thin set that's holding down the tile. If you have a couple 5-gallon buckets, you can fill them up with the tile, thin set, and mortar as you remove your flooring, and use heavy-duty demo bags for your debris. Don't overfill them. Waste management companies usually want the bags to be 30 to 50 pounds max. So check with your town or the company that picks up your garbage for their weight limits.
Okay.
If you have a large job or the tile's difficult to remove, you can rent a hammer drill with a chisel bit from a home center or a rental store. These are great for removing tiles and the thin set from concrete floors once you've removed the tiles. For projects like this, you should be covering the vents and turning off the heating or central air conditioning to help control dust. And if you have floor tile over an underlayment, if the thin set is difficult to remove, it might be easier just to pull it up and replace it.
Okay.
For removing wall tile, you can try prying off the tile with a stiff scraper and driving the scraper under the tile with a hammer. You'd start at an edge. If you don't have an edge that's exposed, you can use a hammer and tap one of the tiles till it breaks, and then break it up and pull it out, and then you can get under the next tile with your scraper. If you have an oscillating multi-tool, there are scraper blades that can be used to remove wall tile, and these work pretty well. For plaster walls and backer board, some types of tile will come off without too much damage to the wall material. But when you're removing wall tile from drywall, sometimes it's just easier to pull off large sections of the tile and the drywall and then just replace the drywall, especially if you plan on painting the wall rather than replacing it with tile. A good hammer to have for demolition projects is a claw hammer with a head and handle that's made out of one piece of steel. You can use this for prying, pulling, and pounding without worrying about damaging or breaking the handle. Some top-rated steel hammers come from Estwing, Stanley, DeWalt, and Ox Tool. If you have floating flooring made out of vinyl planks, engineered hardwood, or laminate, first thing you're going to do is remove the baseboard or quarter round with pry bars, and then you're going to start at the long edge of your boards and pry it up with a flat pry bar, or you can use a long crowbar so you don't have to bend over or get down on your knees. and you just start prying them up and pulling them apart. These floating floors are very easy to remove.
That's good.
For hardwood floors that are nailed or stapled down, you're going to remove your baseboard first with pry bars, and then use a circular saw that's set to the depth of your hardwood floor. You're going to cut 2 slots across the long edges of the flooring, about a foot apart and a couple feet long. Use a flat pry bar to get into the slot and pull out a section in the middle, and now you can use a long crowbar to get good leverage and pull up the planks and pull them apart. And there are long-handled crowbars that have a wide, narrow end, so it's much easier to get under these planks, and it's going to give you good leverage. DeWalt, Vaughan, and Estwing all have top-rated long crowbars. Some companies will call their long-handle crowbars a wrecking bar, but there's a different tool called a demo bar or a wrecking bar that has a long handle and usually double forks or 2 prying bars at the bottom of the tool that are spaced wider than a flooring joist. And these forks can be forced under your flooring, and that long handle is going to give you really good leverage. This is a great tool for pulling up old hardwood floors, roofing, and underlayment. The demo bars that fit around a joist makes it much easier to pry up subfloors and decking that needs to be removed. So this is an interesting tool to look at.
And I'll tell you what, your drawing is fantastic.
Thank you. Some top-rated demo bars come from Crescent, and their tool is called their Bull Bar, B-U-L-L. Another company is Honey Badger. It's H-O-N-E-Y, capital B-A-D-G-E-R. Their tool is called a Demolition Fork. And Gutster, it's G-U-T-S-T-E-R. Theirs is called their Demo Bar.
Cool.
Taking down kitchen wall cabinets is usually pretty easy, especially if you have 2 people.
And a sledgehammer.
So before you try using a sledge, you can remove the screws on the inside of the cabinet behind the door where the cabinet is attached to the cabinet next to it. Then you're going to have screws on the inside of the cabinet attaching it to the wall studs. That's pretty common. Or if you have space above your cabinet, sometimes they'll have the screws above the cabinet on a strip of wood and below the cabinet on a strip of wood. But once you use a cordless drill with a screwdriver bit and unscrew these, it's just very easy to pull away from the wall.
Which is kind of scary, isn't it? I mean, how much weight is in a cabinet?
Right. Yeah, don't put a lot of heavy weight in most cabinets. Some cabinets are nailed and glued in place. So if you see nails, you're going to take off all the doors and remove the shelves first. There might be nails between the cabinets, these are the upper cabinets, or they might be screwed together and then nailed and glued to the wall. If you have nails, you're going to use a nail puller and a hammer and pound the nail puller under the wood, grab the nails and work them free. Once all the nails are pulled out, now you can use a flat pry bar under the bottom of the upper cabinets and pull it free from the wall.
Okay.
To remove paneling, remove any of your molding or trim first, and then start from a corner or an exposed edge and use a flat pry bar to get underneath a section. When you flex it and push that pry bar, generally you can get a few nails to pop out. If you push your paneling back, you can pull out those nails, which will allow you to get your bar further underneath. And now you can either start to work it loose, or you can get a long crowbar, hook it under the edge of the paneling and start pulling on it, and you should be able to pull your paneling free. If it's glued and nailed, you can use a heat gun all along the edge and then slowly pry it away. Wedge your pry bar under a section and then work the heat gun back and forth over the panel. And if you work it long enough, you can usually soften that glue so you can pull it free.
Seems like a lot of work. Just replace the drywall.
There you go. Sledgehammer. For many demo projects, you're going to be creating a lot of dust, and if you're replacing flooring and cutting planks to size, it's going to generate quite a bit of dust. You can tape plastic over a doorway to a room if you're working in one room and overlap the plastic. That way you can walk through and it's going to help contain most of the dust in that room. You can also put a box fan in the window and cut a slit or 2 in the plastic. That'll draw fresh air in and help exhaust the dust. There's a dust barrier system called Zip Wall. It's ZIP capital W-A-L-L, they have plastic for doorways with a zippered door. And that keeps the dust in one area, and you can unzip it, walk through, zip it back down. They also have spring-loaded poles, so you can make a wall with plastic, and they have zippers that you can attach to the plastic to create a door.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Do you have anything else to add?
Some tools to have for common projects is a flat pry bar, a molding bar, and a nail puller. You want to have safety goggles, cut-resistant gloves, an N95 mask, knee pads or a kneeler, earplugs, and work boots or shoes with lightweight composite safety toe and puncture-resistant soles, especially if you're doing these projects where you're going to have a lot of wood with nails in it. A wet dry vac is good, and a radio.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our ebooks, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 14 on Amazon.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter at FixItCohost, and you can follow us on Instagram, Fixit Home Improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.